McLeod. Okay. Thomas McLeod. James Lovell.
Present.
Carmen Rivera. Eric Zimmerman.
I'm present.
Sean Kelly's not here, so Victoria Shaw.
Here.
Brian Davis. Tracy Buxton.
Here.
And I think Dorsal already said that Christina Soltis will join us a little bit late. Dana Ralph, she's excused, I believe. And then Nancy Backus.
I am here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move to public comment. This is the time on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment and are attending online, please use the raised hand function at the bottom of your screen. You'll have 3 minutes to make your remarks. And before you begin, please state your name and city of residence for the record. And is there anyone online that is wishing to speak?
Not in the attendees.
All right. Thank you very much, Dorsal. Well, we will move on then to the approval of the June 14th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, and this is Carmen Rivera. I was not promoted as a panelist and down in the audience when the attendance was taken. So please mark me in here. Thank you.
Welcome and thank you. Thank you for the second. All right, are there any questions or comments? And all those in favor of the approval of the minutes of the June 14th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say no. The minutes have passed. All right, do we have any agenda modifications today, Jeff?
No, we do not.
All right. Well, we are moving right along in this agenda. So next item is 5A, practical solutions to stop the cycle of homelessness. And the SKHHP ILA established the advisory board to provide advice and recommendations to the executive board. And as our region continues to grapple with a housing crisis, the advisory board has prepared a presentation on solutions to increase housing stability and prevent homelessness in our region. And Dorsal, would you like to introduce our guests today from the advisory board?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm really excited for this opportunity to bring the two SKHHP boards together, and I hope we're able to continue to do so in the future. During the development of the 2025 work plan, Claire had the executive board complete a survey which included topics of interest you wanted to learn more about. And I took that information to the advisory board, and out of the topics listed, they overwhelmingly opted to share their knowledge about homelessness. While SKHHP has a commitment to resolve homelessness by building essential housing, our work does not occur in a vacuum. To end the cycle of homelessness, we may need to consider solutions which can truly turn a house into a stable home. Today, the advisory board will present solutions which can ensure households remain stable in their homes and in our neighborhoods. And today's presentation was a work by several of the advisory board members. And even though there will only be a few of them speaking today, I did want to just shout out Mika Soni, Ashley Kenny, Olga Lindbaum, Hamdi Abdul, Kent Hay, Marie Arns, Kathleen Hosfeld, and Rumi Takahashi, who were essential for developing this presentation. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to our first speaker, Minka Soni.
Thank you so much, Dorsal. And first of all, on behalf of the entire advisory committee, I would definitely give my gratitude and thanks to the executive committee to giving us, to give us this chance to come and present and talk about some of the practical solutions that we are trying to see how we can break the cycle and stop the cycle of this homelessness. We are going to talk about, before we jump into that, I think it is very important for us to understand what is the comprehensive model that exists today. So, we work together, putting up some steps, and then see, what we are doing it as of today. So, our current as is model. So maybe Dorsal, if you can go to the next slide. So if you see, this is an ideal world that we are assuming that this will help us to remove homelessness completely. There are individuals or the families which are becoming homeless, and there are several reasons for them to be homeless. It could be because of the income, like low incomes, or some kind of a medical issues, or losing their jobs, or some kind of another emergencies, or maybe even a domestic violence. Now, when we are finding these individuals and these families, there are different service providers that are available today. They are providing support as needed, helping them even to go to their emergency shelter or any of these parking sites where they find some temporary accommodation. From there, the next step is actually to go towards the transitional or supportive housing. And from there, we are trying to put them into a kind of a permanent supporting housing. And there are several options that are available today. And even as a matter of a fact, even SKIP has been involved in this process. So we assume, once they were feeling homeless with these kind of steps, we were able to place them into a permanent supporting housing, and the problem is resolved. However, there are some challenges. And I also, before I proceed to that, actually would definitely like to highlight in our SKIP, the first H itself talk about how and where we are able to provide support with the capital funding. And in the last 2 years, SKIP has even committed to provide 550 homes for our homeless neighbors, those who need them. Now, this is a very, very highlighted factor because we have been putting up a lot of efforts, even putting up funding to provide transitional housing support and a permanent housing support. Now let's look into our next slide where we can see where the problem is actually coming from. So if you see, there is a factor called an income shock. And after COVID, and once the financial support has been reduced, you can definitely see that this income shock is actually becoming very acute. And the problem is, with all the job situations that are going on, more people are losing their jobs. Mental health has become one of the major issues, because of which people are again not able to stabilize and look into how to grow from there. Rather, they are going back into the situation where they're again becoming homeless. Now, domestic violence has also increased. Apart from some of these things, there are still other factors, more factors which could be associated with the medical emergencies, because the expenses for these have grown really high. And particularly for a lot of the service providers, including one of my agency and other agencies that are involved, we are definitely seeing that there is an increase with the homelessness despite having these housing. And because of some of these income shocks, even though they had the home, they are not able to retain their existing housing, and they are getting back into the cycle again. So, if you see, there is a tab which shows that there is, we thought that there is a complete foolproof system that exists, but we know that there is some leakage. Something is yet to be done to prevent the cycle, to break this cycle and make sure that they are coming out of this loop. So let's move to the next slide, Dorsal, please. So if we have to put our efforts, we have to see where this leakage exists as of now, and how and where we can stop this chain, help people to come off these income shocks, and see where there could be an additional support to them that can work as a great solution to help us retain them in their permanent housing. And that's what we are going to discuss today. And I have my fellow advisory committee members, those who are going to talk about some of those solutions. And I believe instead of talking more about this, we can jump into some of those solutions. And I have Dorsal, I think it's Alex, who's going to talk about the rental solutions towards this.
Thank you, Minka. Thank you, Executive Board, for having us here today. My name is Ashley Kenny. I work for Mary's Place and I'm on the advisory board. And like Minka said, today we're hoping to focus on solutions. We know it's really important to turn down the drip or hopefully turn off the faucet altogether that allows households to lose their hard-won homes and fall back into homelessness. We'll talk about some of the successful methods that can help stem the flow. Next slide, please, Dorsal. In order to truly impact homelessness in South King County, we must take steps to prevent homelessness before it begins. So as Minka mentioned, there are several factors leading households to the brink of homelessness, and I'll talk about a few that are most pertinent here. First, the cost of housing is very high. And based on what we see in our organizations, typically more than half of households exiting homelessness are not able to access permanent supportive housing or fully subsidized units due to a shortage of supply. Instead, many households exit homelessness into 60% AMI units or market rate housing, and they're severely rent burdened from the outset. Rents are steadily climbing and incomes can't keep up. So then an income shock may occur, sickness, car breakdown, job loss could result in 1 month of missed rent, and that can set a household on the path to eviction because often households are living paycheck to paycheck on a very tight budget. We know that not every household faced with eviction becomes homeless, but research shows that households that have previously been homeless are most likely to fall into homelessness again. These households do not have a family safety net or a social safety net, as was seen with their prior episode of homelessness. And unfortunately, a household's return to homelessness is extremely expensive for everyone. Could you go to the next slide, please? The research shows that providing rental assistance, along sometimes with housing stability case management, is far cheaper than allowing a household to fall into homelessness. Paying a household's full rent for multiple months may sometimes feel like a tough pill to swallow when funding resources are scarce, but the alternative is much worse. A 2020 study of homelessness prevention in King County found that the average shelter stay cost $14,000 for an individual that ultimately moved into permanent housing. When a household becomes homeless, in addition to a shelter cost like this, there are costs to the landlord, payment of the past eviction debt, payment of a new deposit and rent for the household returning to housing. And there are also other real costs, even though they're difficult to quantify, associated with the trauma of homelessness. Disruptions to employment and schooling, loss of belongings and furniture, loss of community, increased risk of mental and physical illness, increased rates of substance use, crime, and incarceration. This can be a big deal for anyone, and when there are children in the home, this trauma affects them throughout their lifetime. You all have a copy of these slides, and I'm not going to read everything here, but I want to highlight another study done in the 2019-2020 timeframe in Santa Clara County, California, that demonstrates the benefits of rental assistance. In this randomized controlled trial, the households receiving rental assistance were significantly less likely to become homeless, so the goal was achieved. And even after considering that the program paid an average rental assistance amount of around $4,400, and after subtracting agency overhead costs, this same study found that the community benefited from this program in the amount of around $2,600 per household. So this benefit, or this includes benefits, really cost savings to the area's housing and homelessness services, landlords, healthcare and criminal justice systems, and other public services. When funding resources are scarce, which they always are, we look towards solutions such as rental assistance to get the most benefit from the funding. Next slide, please. Sometimes funders include strict parameters when granting rental assistance funding to service providers. We see this when funders require that in order to qualify for assistance, a household has to be on the verge of eviction. For households that have to wait until the last minute to qualify for funding, sometimes it's too late for them to stabilize. It can sour relationships between tenants and landlords, and the households endure trauma for way too long. I personally work with families with children experiencing housing instability. So usually the family knows that they won't be able to pay rent before it becomes due, so before the first of the month. And that's when they start reaching out for assistance. These moms or dads are often told by organizations that they're not eligible for assistance until they have received a pay or vacate notice from their landlord, or even until they've received an eviction court summons. The fear and the trauma starts to build. So I've tried to put myself in their shoes. Each day that someone spends fearing a return to homelessness and fearing that their children may have to sleep outside is a terrifying day. During that time, I know I personally would not be able to function well. I wouldn't be a patient parent or a productive employee, a loving partner, or attend to my own mental health needs under the burden of that stress. We think if service providers have more leeway with their use of rental assistance funding, they can judge how to best serve their target population and enhance housing stability and hopefully reduce trauma. We also see that it can be problematic when funders set a low limit on the amount of rental assistance that can be provided. So in our area, we've seen limits sometimes around $2,000, $3,000, some higher. Unfortunately, the need is often very high, especially these days. Landlords may find themselves in a situation where eviction proceedings move slowly, or we often see landlords that are really willing to work with the household. They're trying to be patient and they don't initiate eviction proceedings right away. And during this time, attorneys often advise properties not to accept partial payments. So the result is the bills rack up. Households that may be able to pay part, but not all of their arrears, may find themselves racking up several months and several $1,000s of rental arrears. If service providers are allowed to individualize the assistance to meet the need, they can better help these households that will be able to pay their rent going forward, but are not able to pay their balance due to this income shock, and then they can stabilize that household's housing. We know that for many households, it's really one-time rental assistance that addresses their need and brings them back to housing stability. But there are other households where there's more to be done before they can stabilize in housing. Perhaps they're still enduring some of the trauma that they experienced while homeless. I'll hand it over now to my colleague, Kent Hay, to talk about some types of additional support that can be helpful to these households.
All right, thank you. My name is Kent Hay. I am the Human Services Director for the City of Auburn. So I'm going to start off this presentation this part of the presentation of comprehensive case management with the story real quick. So I got here in 2020. I do outreach also for the City of Auburn. And so on one of my outreach, probably my first outreach trips, I met a family who was experiencing homelessness in one of our parks. It was a young lady in her 30s. And she had 6 children, and she had been out there way before I got here. She's been in and out of homelessness for years. And so met her, just long story short, ended up getting her housed into an apartment. Usually what happens is when you get into an apartment, when you house a family, so if like a nonprofit provider houses a family, they don't do post-service for a long period of time. I think you get 3 to 6 months of service or something before they close your case, and then you're kind of left on your own to figure that out. So just getting her in with the anxiety, her unable to go to the office to pay rent or go check her mail because she's worried about what's coming out of the mailbox. She would get behind on her rent. Then we find ourselves going in there trying to figure out how to get her caught back up on her rent and her utilities. And this has been going on now 2024. We're facing an eviction. And so now we're trying to, again, assist. So for 4 years, I've kept this family housed by the amount of case management that we've put in place. And so she's unable to manage her finances. So to go back to this slide of comprehensive case management, how important it is to have someone to be there to help you connect with the services, to put things in place in order to help folks address the needs that they have, which includes health, education, environment, food access, workforce development, and to keep people and their families stably housed. Next slide, Dorsal. So homeless stability payee services. This is a solution that we came up with. This is so homelessness, right, often exacerbates financial instability due to challenges in managing funds effectively. So with this young lady I was talking about, she had a housing voucher. And so with that housing voucher, she's only paying, subsidized amount of her rent, which is around, I think, $300, but with utilities, she might pay around $450, somewhere around there. And even with that low amount, she's still unable to pay her bills on time, right? And so we find ourselves in this cycle. So what this program does is enhances financial stability for individuals experiencing homelessness. It fosters independence and self-sufficiency, and it helps with effective budget and financial planning. Next slide, Dorsal. So the purpose of this program, so it aims to provide financial stability and support to individuals experiencing homelessness or people on the verge of homelessness. So in a nutshell, what this program would do is, for those folks who are asking for financial assistance, for rental assistance, it would require them to be in a payee service or have access to a payee service where their money would be taken, and some payee service would manage their funds, pay their bills so that their bills are paid, so that it takes the burden off the person experiencing the financial burden, and it allows them to not worry about, if their bills are paid, if all the things are paid that are super important to keep them housed, to keep them stable, to keep food in the house, and then the money that's left over is the allowance that person would be given. It would also teach budgeting assistance to help those folks start working on how to better manage their money. It would be coordinated with social service agencies, and the goal is to set up support for stability and housing attainment. So in a nutshell, it'd be a program that someone takes someone's financial, or it's Social Security, disability, or whatever money is coming in, manage that money so all your bills are paid, keep you stable, then start working with you to train you how to manage your money. So in the long run, you're saving money, you're stable in your housing, all your needs are met, and then you still have the ability to work with some social service agencies for all the other things that you need in your life to be stable. Next slide, Dorsal. So one thing that we don't talk about, and it's very rarely mentioned, is home ownership as a homelessness prevention, right? So usually we get people in the housing, and then we're like, okay, you're good, and then we go off somewhere until that person either needs us again or they become homeless again, and those type of things. But we never talk about, if you go from homelessness to housing, then there's another part, right? And how do we get someone into home ownership, which is a more stable place to be? Next slide, Dorsal. So home ownership as a prevention, homelessness prevention. So for the key things is stability, affordable housing payment, government support, and wealth building. So stability comes from when you're in a house, it gives you a permanent place to live where you can't be evicted, right? So every month you're not getting an eviction or a 30-day notice. You have a house payment. You're in a stable house. You can't be evicted. There's subsidized home ownership, lower than market rate renting. So it's a fixed rate mortgage. So you don't have to worry about every single month your rate, if you're renting from month to month, that they're going to increase your rent so extremely high that you're not going to be able to afford it. Or once your 1-year lease is up, they're going to raise your rent so high that you're going to have to try to find another place, which is going to be very difficult to find. So this will provide predictable housing costs. Also, when you talk about government support, one of the things that CDBG, I don't know if everybody knows what CDBG is, Community Development Block Grant. Some of those funds can be used for down payments on homes. And then also when you think about our general fund dollars from cities, what we do with our general fund dollars from cities is we peanut butter spread, a lot of the money to a lot of agencies to do a lot of different work. But there could be a time where we dream about using that money for something different. And those funds can be used to help someone who, let's just say, went through the payee service program and are now stable and now have saved enough, have some money saved. And now they're talking about going into permanent housing, moving into a home, but they need help with that down payment. Those different funds can come into place for the government to help, or we ask, the feds for more money for CDBG funds to use towards that. And then wealth building. Once you own your own home, you start building equity in that home. There's a financial safety net. It also is generational housing. So as it turns out, as you're living in that home and that person passes away, their kids are able to still live in that home. And so you have a generation of housing. So those folks don't enter into homelessness as well. And then there's also research that help with homeowners weather times of financial distress in the long run. So from homelessness to housing, whether that's in an apartment, to have someone to help you pay those bills, get you structured, help you become financially stable, and then start working towards permanent housing so that you're in a home long term, hopefully for the rest of your life, and that will turn off the cycle of people entering into homelessness, and then we can focus on the folks that are homeless on the ground. So it keeps the people experiencing home or on the verge of homelessness from entering into homelessness, so we can focus more on the folks who are homeless and put them in and keep them stable. So I think that was the end of my presentation, and I will turn this over to Maria.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Executive Board, for allowing me to share right now. My name is Maria Arns. I am a 68-year-old disabled woman. I've been a homeowner. I was an LPN in 2008 or 2009 who had an on-the-job injury, and the surgery to repair the injury was only guaranteed a 50% success rate. So I said no. I, at that point, lost any benefits from labor and industry. I was on unemployment for a time, and they were unable to find me a job. And so I pretty much just lost everything. I had my son living with me, who only had 2 quarters left in college. My mother, who was a widow, was with me. And so we found a couple places to stay and got into that cycle of moving over and over again. I had been advised to sue the company where I had the injury because the nurse who was on duty in the section, she didn't let me know she was leaving, and it was her patient who was in crisis. And I was able to get there. The patient was able to live. But like I said, I suffered a permanent injury that allowed me to not be able to work anymore and take care of myself or my family. Since then, I have been homeless or unstably housed with my mother and my son. I applied for Social Security disability at that time and did not get it until 2015. By the time I got it, my mom was able to go stay with my other son, who was married and had a family. I rented a house that was in foreclosure. I did not know that the rent had not been paid since 2004. And so I had a lease, but when the lease was up, the cash for keys was coming. And so although we had a verbal agreement that I could stay, she decided that I couldn't live there anymore. And her family actually moved in, and they were able to get the cash for keys. I've gotten into the cycle of renting rooms, and I did that for a few years. And it was challenging. The last place that I was renting a room from was from a couple that I knew. And one day they went out to dinner, and then the man came home without his wife and decided to expose himself. I called, excuse me, my younger son and told him that I needed him to sign a lease with me because I get 1840, but the requirements to be able to rent are 3 to 4 times the income is what they're asking for what the rent is. I was fortunate that someone that I knew connected me to the Urban League, and they helped with the move-in costs. Because of the area where my apartment was, my son decided that it wasn't safe for me by myself, so he moved in with me. And it was a blessing because a few months after that, I had a heart attack. When the lease was up, we were in a pretty stable position. And so because he decided to stay, we rented a 2-bedroom apartment. And we stayed there for a couple of years. And I got employment during that time. And it's because of the disability that I have, it's causes me not to be able to work, but these people were able to work with the disability. So my son and I rented a house, the house that I'm currently living in, and the rent is $2,600. Well, that job came to an end in November. And so our income doesn't meet the needs to be able to stay here. And so we're every month, it's a challenge to see if I'm going to be able to keep my housing. And even before this meeting, I had to run to the pawn shop to pawn something to get my phone turned back on because it was turned off. And I don't think people realize that just having the assistance of 1 month's rent can take the pressure off and give you a chance to breathe. Today, I still owe rent for July. And, you know, I'm fortunate that we're still here, but it's almost like at this time of the month, it's a day-to-day fight. And I know that it doesn't seem like a lot, but it takes a toll on you. And we just want to be able to see that. I think the presentation spoke for itself. And again, I'm thankful that you allowed me this time to speak. You know, I know that I would take being homeless and sleeping in my car. You know, as a homeless person, I have been raped, I have been beat, and I'm tired. And I know that there are many people out there that don't even have the comfort of having shelter for just one day to get out of the elements. Thank you for your time.
Maria, thank you so much for sharing your story. It is a powerful one, and it is clear that you are a woman of strength. And I think you have given us all a lot to think about today. Minka, Ashley, and Kent, thank you also for your work on this presentation and for bringing to us some important thoughts that maybe we haven't investigated at all, or as much as we need to when we are talking about how do we prevent homelessness and how do we ensure that there is affordable housing in place for everyone who needs it. Are there any questions from the board today or anyone that's in attendance? I'll open it up to everyone. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Victoria.
Thank you. And thank you so much to everybody who presented. That was very, very impactful. My one question is the homelessness stability payee services. Is that a specific service, or is that sort of an umbrella, a brand of service? I'm not really familiar with it.
Can I answer that?
Please.
So there is payee services. So like the Arc of King County has a payee service. So people do have payees. When you get on Social Security disability, sometimes you can opt to have a payee, or the court will order you to have a payee because you're not able to manage your money. So those services exist. They just don't exist in the way of what we're talking about in this program. So it's something that it can happen. It's an agency, or there are payees that exist. It just doesn't coordinate with housing.
Thank you.
So Kent, is there a way to be able to make that happen? I know you and I have chatted about that for a while, but is there any way that we can, or someone could work on that to make that a reality?
100%. I think it's a simple, I know I say simple, I look at things as simple. But I do think it's very, there's the ability to do that. It's really just putting the pieces together to get a payee service, or even reach out to some that are already there, and then connect those apartment managers necessarily with those people who are in those apartments. And then it would be just the apartment complex speaking to those individuals who are in those situations of on the verge of homelessness, and probably connecting all those pieces together. So in my head, what it would look like is a payee service partnering with apartment complexes, and in those apartment complexes, when someone is having those issues, reaches out to that payee service, and then that partnership begins.
Thank you. James?
Yes, Kent, question for you. You in your presentation, you were mentioned general funds, and I may have this wrong. You mentioned kind of general funds when you were talking about home ownership, and I could be totally off base, but how does that mesh with gifting of public funds? I understand rental assistance, but it seems like that kind of intersects in a way that wouldn't seem to be kosher. So did I misunderstand that? I understand the community development block grants, but can you speak a little bit more on that?
Definitely. So if we're looking at general fund dollars, and we go out right now, we're going through contracts, right, with agencies they're putting in for housing stability and homelessness stability. If we are using those funds, if we decided to go through the process and we are asking for agencies, this is what the city of Auburn's goal is, right, for the city of Auburn. And so people are applying for money, and let's just say one of those is we're asking for people to use our general fund dollars for that purpose, right? And then if they get picked and we allocate funds, then they'd be able to use those funds for that purpose.
Okay.
So it's not the city that would just be giving money to people. It's still going through the process of the contracts, but it would just be, I think, more cities saying this is what we would use our money for. This is what housing stability looks like for the city of Auburn. Is there agencies that are open to providing that service?
Okay, appreciate it.
Sochi?
Hi, Sochi. I'm with King County DCHS. I'm here for Sunari while she's on maternity leave. I'll just add that so King County, our housing finance program, does fund some home ownership, and similar to rental assistance, the folks who or similar to rental projects, the folks who either are in a home ownership project that we have funded, or if they've received down payment assistance, they still have to meet income qualifications. So usually it's folks who are 80% of the area median income. And so the gift of public funds is not an issue. It's just it's essentially higher income folks than maybe what we would be serving through other rental projects, but they're still below the median. So if that's helpful.
Thank you, Sochi. Other questions? All right. Well, again, thank you to everyone, Minka, Ashley, Kent, and Maria for your presentation today, and Maria for your inspirational story of strength. And I have a feeling that once again, you are going to prevail. All right, we will move, thank you. We will move on to item 6, and that is board business. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. I asked that this item be added to the agenda, and it goes kind of, like I say, hand in hand with the presentation that we just had, because we need to be ready for the next chapter with KCRHA. Many of you, if not all of you, are aware that there has been a new CEO hired, and she comes on board in just a couple of weeks. And so there is also a meeting next week that some of you, I think it was an invitation. Let me look it up on my calendar. I think it's next Tuesday. It was an invitation from Executive Constantine and Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell to convene the mayors from King County and some business leaders to talk about what KCRHA is going to look like in the future. And I think there's a variety of different opinions, obviously, on what that should look like. And I wanted to talk more with Skip, because we do have 2 H's in our name. And up till recently, that second H has been pretty silent. So I wanted to have a discussion on whether we would like, what we would like to see from KCRHA, and do we want to respond as individual cities to issues and matters of KCRHA, or do we want to have a collective group through SKIP? Not that all decisions would go through SKIP, but that we may be the focal, right? There is, within SKIP, there is the 5-year plan, but there's also sub-regional plans. And South King County is one of the sub-regions. We are South King County. And so do we want to have KCRHA interact with each city individually, or do we want to have SKIP as kind of a focal? And again, not making decisions on behalf of the cities by itself, but just to be that focal for any type of information that's coming in. So I wanted to bring that up, wanted to have us talk about that. And I think it's important that we as an executive committee also maybe try and understand what each of our cities' approaches are to homelessness, and whether we can have a cohesive, consistent position so that we're unified when issues come up. I know that there have been some cities in the past who have not been notified when sheltering services are being brought in through KCRHA. And I know that is a point of contention. And so I think we just have this opportunity to identify how we interact, how we move forward, and honestly, whether we want to keep that second H in our name or not. So given next week's convening of the executive and the mayor and the mayors in King County, I just wanted to bring this to our agenda to see if any of you had any ideas, any thoughts, and if it's something that you want to talk about, what would you think about having an ad hoc committee put together, identified, to work through some of the issues? So that's a whole bunch that I said in a very short amount of time. So I just want to open it up to all of you to see if you have any thoughts on it, have any questions. Yes, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bacchus. A few of us will be at that meeting. I think it's very wise for us to try to represent ourselves through SKIP. There's strength in unity and representing as a larger multi-municipal area. And I think that would really be to our advantage. And if that requires a working group or another investment of time and labor, I think that's great. We should do that, recognizing that this is a unique opportunity to try to help an organization course correct, and I think maybe reorient its operations in a way that does benefit our cities and maybe isn't so exclusively focused on one or two municipalities.
Thank you. James.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm agreeing with Eric that we want to have a kind of unified policy platform. And like you say, there's just no way that any of us could ever defer our authority on decision making for our individual cities. And I think we should just acknowledge that city by city, we may at times deviate from the policy platform, but that the conditions in every city are different, and that the deviation might be a reaction to conditions that are very different. Who our contracted police forces, who our contracted nonprofit providers are, what resources are otherwise available, can really change the way that we operate. But I think policy-wise, there will be a lot of alignment. It's just it may look operationally, things may look different just because of the resources that are or are not available, or the contracted partners we all have.
Thank you, James. Carmen.
Thank you. I am in overall agreement. I definitely would like to go back to my council, and I think we're going to be having a committee of the whole, another committee of the whole, following up on regional issues. And so this might be a prime time to just check in with them and ensure that we're all on the same page. I agree with James primarily in the terms of, like, I think from city to city, based off of our region, like our own differences, we're going to have maybe some policy differences, but representing ourselves as a region, there's definitely power in numbers there. And also, just to add, I think after the presentation we just saw today, there is, for me, even more of a reason to tie housing and homelessness together. But I do appreciate the idea of maybe like a subcommittee, something that focuses more specifically on connecting those two. And I think I would be totally for that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Tracy.
Thank you. Agreed. I think the basic reason that we decided to come into this partnership is the strength of regional approach to issues, and that applies to housing and homelessness. So absolutely, I definitely am of the opinion that we should retain the second H. I also think an ad hoc committee would be a good idea, especially I think that the evolution of the word homelessness is in full swing right now with I call it a new homeless population. So as we continue to host refugees and asylees, there are a couple of different thoughts and approaches about how to work these different communities. So absolutely, a regional approach is essential, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. James?
Yeah, I forgot to thank you, Carmen, for kind of reminding that there were, I think, 3 or 4 questions you posed within that, Mayor Bacchus. So support the regional policy platform. And also, yes, I think we should retain the second H. And also volunteering myself to participate in an ad hoc committee. It's gonna be a little dicey. Just I don't know who all knows. My full-time job is at Chief Seattle Club, which is I work in housing and homelessness. That's where I am right now. Is 2 floors above our shelter, next door to 2 permanent supportive housing buildings in Pioneer Square, and I work with KCRHA. I work with KCRHA about 80% of the time, and I work against KCRHA maybe 20% of the time, as we just really struggle to find a way that all of the different partners and providers can address a massive issue. There are different policy. There's a federal policy reason why Native people are chronically homeless, and so we approach the work differently at Chief Seattle Club and in my day job because we're working with Native people, because there's a federal policy from the 50s that caused chronic homelessness for Native people. But I think overall, there are so many policy things that we need to be doing as small cities that will address the regional homelessness, kind of getting to the source of it. So again, willing to sit on it, and just folks should feel free to, if it feels like I'm a little too in the weeds on things, you can lift me back out a little bit, just because it is the 60-hour-a-week job I have. So.
And thank you for the work that you do, James. The next person, their name shows up as Skip panelist, so I'm not sure who it is. But if you have your hand raised and you're not Victoria, you are next.
It might. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. This is Christina Soltis from Covington. Thank you. I don't know why it shows up that way, but oh, there you go. Thank you, Dorsal. First off, thank you for amazing presentations. I came in just a few minutes late. I was in an appointment with my baby, but I thank you to Maria for her story. It's incredibly touching. I, without sounding redundant, do want to agree with what James and Eric said in the very beginning. Regionally, we have a better voice when we combine our voices together. I had a thought that might be out there, but just an idea came to mind. And I know that, like Tracy said, I think it's Tracy that said that we have homelessness is such a vast meaning. The word is, oh my goodness, it could mean so many different things. And when it comes to what SKIP does, we do have the 2 H's. I wonder if it would make sense to add a P that would stand for homelessness prevention. It kind of narrows down what we do. I know we work with real estate a lot. The way that SKIP is effective, I think is in preventing the outcome of what happens post, like in Maria's case, what happens next month. And I just wonder if it would make sense if we were the Housing and Homelessness Prevention Partnership or partners. It clarifies a few things for me. Maybe it's just in my head, but if there's anyone that sees it that way, instead of taking away, maybe it would, there's already 2 H's, why not? It doesn't take away from how it sounds either. And just some food for thought, but thank you. And I really appreciate everything that's been said today.
Thank you, Christina. Victoria.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I feel like I should voice my support for all of the above as well. So definitely feel like it's just the wise thing to stay as a regional voice. I think the housing absolutely, or the homelessness absolutely needs to stay. And I support this subcommittee because it is such a spectrum that it does need its own attention. And if we wanted to add a P, I think I would be in support of that as well. So.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay, I know are we at about half of our roll today, Dorsal? Half of the attendees that maybe a little bit more than half, but the summer I know is a difficult time for us to try and get everyone in place, but we can send out an email asking all of the board membership who would be interested in being on the ad hoc committee. Unless, as James did, you want to let us know today, we can take that down as well, and then start putting together some thoughts. I think there might be some more clarity after next week's convening of the mayors in King County, and we can certainly report back on that. I have not seen an agenda yet. I know that I'm on a panel with Bruce and Dow relating to how KCRHA came about, but I have not seen much more than that. So I'm hopeful. I think they were working yesterday to finalize the agenda. So I would assume that it would be out today, Monday at the very latest, but we can share that as well. And I see Tracy is interested in the ad hoc committee. Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else?
So I realize that I'm here from King County, and so I defer to the group on whether or not it would be useful and helpful to have our participation on this subcommittee. If there is a desire to have us on the subcommittee, happy to do so. If there's a desire to have this be focused more on voices from cities, totally understand that as well. So yeah, think on it and let me know.
Thank you, Sochi. Carmen.
I'm happy to join the subcommittee as well.
All right, thank you. And Sochi, I think having that King County perspective could be very good. So I appreciate that. Victoria.
Not sure if my chat went through, but I'm just an alternate, so I don't know if I would qualify to be on the ad hoc committee, but I would be interested if that's a possibility.
Okay, excellent. We can talk with Sean and see how that works. And we just need to make sure that we don't have a quorum, but I think we're in good space right now. Dorsal, remind me, if you would please, how many members do we have? What is our board?
We have 13 total members currently on the executive board.
Okay, so we could do 6. Perfect. All right. All right. Well, thank you to those that have volunteered. I know your time is very valuable, so I appreciate everyone who is a member of this board for your care and compassion, and for those who are on the advisory committee that are still on. I want to say thank you to you as well, because your work is very meaningful. And for the staff working group that is on, I could say it goes without saying, but it shouldn't. You have been amazing as far as keeping us posted on all of the issues, staffing, letting us know what's going on, supporting us, lifting up the work. And I can't say enough about how much I appreciate each of you. Okay, I think we have moved on to general updates, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Tate on some general updates from the month of June. And board members, you'll also have an opportunity to discuss any follow-up items from last month's board meeting. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Executive Board for giving me 5 or so minutes just to share what has been going on for the last month or so since the last meeting in June. So first and foremost, I want to highlight again, I think I said this last month, but as normal cadence from executive board meeting to executive board meeting goes, there's a kind of a midpoint in that month where the staff working group gets together and talks about conversation that occurred at the prior board meeting, conversation and agenda that's coming up at the next board meeting. So that staff work group meeting did occur on July 3rd. I think it's important to highlight that because it is the staff that represent your jurisdiction and work with you and support you that continue to get together and talk about the ways that they can better support the executive board. So it's always worth a shout out to the staff working group, which is another commitment to SKIP and each member's overall time and energy that goes into this work. And then I also want to call out a few things that kind of participation and action items in between meetings. If I say we, I'm talking about SKIP staff. And when I'm talking about SKIP staff, I'm talking about Dorsal because I didn't do any of this. So important to call that out. But there was participation in the King County Public Funders meetings on June 18th and July 16th. Likewise, at the county's housing interjurisdictional team meetings on June 20th and July 18th. The Washington State Homeownership Affinity Group on July 8th, which is hosted by the Department of Commerce. Also participation in a variety of affordable housing meetings and discussions organized by nonprofit organizations. And I guess while we all attend meetings, everybody attends a lot of meetings. The reason I want to highlight those is because, dorsal's in a lot of spaces, and that's really important for SKIP because it gives SKIP visibility. It gives SKIP participation. So dorsal's presence in all of those meetings and those venues continues to keep SKIP on very important radars. So I think it's important to call out all of that participation that occurs. Of course, he's staffing the advisory board meeting, and you heard a great presentation today. And dorsal's work includes helping prepare, helping arrange meetings to practice, do dry runs of presentations, and get folks participating in those conversations and providing more information. Dorsal's also been meeting with project proponents or nonprofits who have already received funding from SKIP's Capital Fund. So I get a window into some of those technical conversations, either to continue to meet with those agencies and organizations that have been funded, as well as to help prepare agencies and organizations pursue funding from SKIP. So that's been really insightful for me to be able to see kind of how those are arranged. And many of those conversations also include your staff if there's a project that is being discussed in one of your municipalities. Dorsal also has, in the last month, attended a number of city council meetings to be there and support, and even in a case or two, providing the presentation to member city councils for adoption or endorsement of the 2025 work plan and the 2025 budget. He's helped all of us. I know that I can say this more on a personal level, of being able to submit the annual reports that are required for HB 1406 funds. So all of that money that's collected at local municipality level and that's pooled into SKIP, SKIP staff, Dorsal, is going on and online to the state's website and doing the reporting on behalf of us. So that's really appreciated. He's also preparing for the upcoming September 20th affordable housing tour. It'll be in place of the executive board meeting to go out and visit some properties. And making those arrangements requires a certain amount of facilitation and coordination to make that all come together and work well. I also convened a group of faith-based organization to participate in the South King County Planners and Developers meeting, and that is bringing planners and developers together to talk about affordable housing opportunities, how cities and developers can work better together to achieve these outcomes, and bringing in a group of faith-based organizations to talk about how you can use property they own to make affordable housing projects come together. So that was really fascinating. He organized a training and update session for the South King County Planners on the Affordable Housing Inventory Dashboard, which is an item that is on the SKIP work plan. It's on schedule to be completed by January 2025. It's going to include a lot of information, a lot of data that all of the cities, all of the membership or cities for SKIP are going to be able to take advantage of. So it's going to be super helpful. So I really wanted to take a minute and just say Dorsal does a lot. And the SKIP staff, when Claire's back as well, I mean, she's obviously important and helpful in that area as well. But I'm not doing a ton. I'm helping a little bit, but it's impressive to step into Claire's position for a few months and see all that he's doing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and Dorsal, thank you for all of your work. I know a lot of times it feels like you're in the background, but we forget how much work that you have been doing. And Jeff, thank you for bringing that to our attention, because Dorsal, we wouldn't exist without you. You and Claire are a dynamic team. And Jeff, I want to thank you for stepping in to Claire's role, in addition to so many other roles that you have taken on. And you know what? This is the first time I'm going to have to do this. This is the last meeting that Jeff will be at. Jeff will be leaving August 1st. He'll be leaving the city of Auburn. And we are going to miss him a great deal, obviously. He has been a voice of reason, a guiding light, a friend, a confidant, someone who isn't willing to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, and just a friend to everyone, to his peers, to the team that he leads. I don't know a single person that I've ever heard say a bad word about Jeff. And the only bad words I can say is I hate him for leaving. But I don't, because he is going to enjoy a wonderful life after he leaves the city of Auburn, not doing this type of work anymore. And I just wanted everyone to know what a valuable person that we have in Jeff as well, and Dorsal. I think it takes a special type of person to do the type of work that both of you do. And I couldn't be prouder to know you both. I couldn't be prouder to have been able to work with you. And Dorsal, you're stuck with me, Jeff. I'm not done with you yet, but but I wanted everyone to know how much I have appreciated the work that Jeff has done, and I will continue to appreciate the work that Dorsal does.
Thank you for the kind words, and I appreciate it. And yeah, there's a lot in there, so I don't know. It's exciting opportunities in front of me, but and just so that everybody knows, I'm not leaving the city of Auburn because of another employment opportunity, and I'm not leaving the city because of it's an amazing place to work at. But my wife and I are moving out of state, so we're moving to Bend, Oregon. So it's just a future dream, or it's a dream that we've had, and it's something we're able to realize. So, but thank you, Mayor and Chair. Thank you for all the opportunity and the kind words.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, do we have any updates or announcements from anyone in the meeting today? Anything going on in your communities you'd like to share? Well, I like the trajectory of these meetings, the trend of ending early. It is, what is it, 2:13 on a Friday afternoon. So I hope all of you, oh, James, you did have something, please.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to hit the hand raise button and it kept putting it down automatically. I was just gonna say, the city of SeaTac, you know, I proposed a bill for us to start a housing opportunity fund in SeaTac, using some of the surplus and kind of rearranging some funding to try to make combination of home ownership and low income multifamily housing opportunities available for the city to take action on. We've got a good housing action plan. We've got some good data, but we need more tools. We're doing our comp plan, and so we've been getting a lot of updates on what the housing situation looks like. We've got less home ownership than most cities do, and a lot more renting than most cities do. And so as we approach, you know, hopefully, well, I would like to say as we approach passage of something, but I'm one of 7 votes, as you all know. You know, I'll keep folks updated on what the shape it's taking. We are definitely learning from other cities in the region as we look at what different housing efforts have come from cities larger and smaller than us. And so thank you to everyone who's done housing work that we've been poaching language from. And anyone who's looking into doing it, I would ask or I'd offer, you know, we are learning, and we'd love to learn alongside folks as you look at ways. It doesn't take away from our participation in SKIP. It's just a continued deepening at looking at what are the things that SeaTac needs specifically, because I think the work SKIP is doing is needed very much in the region, and I want us to keep supporting that. But those, again, those are more generalized strategies, right? Which is appropriate for a regional approach. We have some specific things we're looking at for the city of SeaTac to address the specific data that we have. So feel free to come learn alongside us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, James. Very exciting. Anyone else? All right, well then I will wish you a sunny weekend, no sunburns. Enjoy your time away from work, hopefully. And thank you all for the work that you continue to do on behalf of your cities, county, your organizations, and on behalf of SKIP. It is greatly appreciated, and we are going strong. I am proud of the work that we have been doing, and after today's presentations and discussions, I think I can say that the second H is no longer silent. So I appreciate that as well. Take care, have a great weekend, and we will see each of you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.